In the quiet haven of Willow Creek, where creativity flowed as freely as the namesake stream, Eleanor Vance crafted canvases that shimmered with the very essence of life. Her studio, a vibrant testament to an unbound spirit, seemed impervious to the shadows that often lurked beyond its tranquil borders. But on a crisp autumn morning, that sanctuary fell silent, its colors muted, its creative pulse extinguished. What remained was a brutal tableau of disruption, a void where a brilliant light had once shone, yet no clear path forward. The immediate aftermath brought only an overwhelming sense of loss, followed by the chilling creep of a mystery that defied conventional investigation. For years, her story seemed destined to fade into the forgotten files of cold cases, a stark reminder that some truths simply vanish. Yet, in an age defined by the unseen currents of data, could the very echoes of our connected lives finally illuminate the darkest corners of a perfect crime? In the serene embrace of Willow Creek's outskirts, where ancient willows wept over a meandering stream, Eleanor Vance's art studio pulsed with life. Her every brushstroke, a vibrant extension of her boundless spirit, filled the space. Here, amidst tubes of cadmium and cerulean, Eleanor's canvases pulsed with the extraordinary, transforming the mundane into revelations of light and color. She was more than just an artist. Her laugh, a melody of pure joy, resonated through the small community, making her its radiant core. She possessed a heart as open as the vast skies. She often painted freely, giving her time, her passion, and her vivid perspective to those around her. Her absence for 2 full days, however, began to cast a subtle, unsettling discord upon this harmony. Initially, friends and neighbors accustomed to her spontaneous retreats into creativity dismissed it as another burst of inspiration. But for Robert Vance, Eleanor's older brother, a man of quiet fortitude and deep unspoken devotion, that creeping silence became a cold tendril tightening around his chest. He recalled their last call, Eleanor's voice, light and excited, discussing a new series inspired by the shifting marshlands nearby. That memory now felt distant, almost hollow. On a crisp autumn morning, a gnawing unease propelled him towards her studio. The path, usually alive with birdsong and the rustle of leaves, felt unnaturally hushed. The air, typically fragrant with turpentine and fresh paint, now hung heavy with a different metallic chill, a scent that pricked at the primal instincts. The studio door, usually ajar, inviting the breeze, and the curious stood closed, a stark, unyielding barrier. He reached for the cold brass handle, his heart thundering a frantic, irregular rhythm against his ribs. He pushed the door open. What lay within was not Eleanor's vibrant world, but a brutal desecration. Canvases lay overturned, their painted dreams shattered. Paint tubes were scattered like fallen soldiers across the floor, their vibrant hues smeared into a chaotic, grotesque palette. A palette knife, its tip glinting menacingly, lay near a wall splattered with unspeakable crimson. Amidst the wreckage on the polished wooden floor, a deeper, horrifying shade of red stained the boards, not from paint, but from a source far more sinister. Eleanor was gone. Her vibrant presence had been violently ripped from the sanctuary she loved, leaving behind an aching void that threatened to consume Robert. Quiet hum of Willow Creek shattered, replaced by a collective gasp of disbelief that reverberated through the stunned community. Who would commit such an act of savagery? Why Eleanor, the very soul of their town? The questions hung heavy and unanswered in the air, a silent scream of shock and despair, resonating through the traumatized silence. The police band crackled with a terse, urgent pronouncement, slicing through the morning calm. Possible homicide, 217 Marshland Lane. Victim unconfirmed. For Detective Alex Thorne, whose face bore the etched lines of 2 decades grappling with humanity's darkest impulses, the familiar knot of dread tightened in his gut. He knew that address, a secluded studio where Eleanor Vance, the artist, painted her vibrant world. This call felt different, carrying a colder, more insidious whisper than most. Upon arrival at Eleanor Vance's studio, the scene was one of immediate yet contained chaos. Uniformed officers moved with a practiced, somber precision, their grim faces reflecting the horror that had unfolded within. The air, thick and heavy, assaulted the senses. The coppery tang of blood mingled grotesquely with the faint, sweet scent of oil paint and turpentine. Thorne stepped carefully over the threshold, his gaze sweeping across the scene, absorbing every jarring detail. Easels lay overturned, twisted metal, and splintered wood, forming abstract sculptures of destruction. Tubes of cadmium red, once vibrant and pliable, were crushed underfoot, their contents smeared across the floor. A palette knife, its tip glistening menacingly, lay abandoned near a wall, splattered with unspeakable crimson. Amidst this wreckage of passion, a stark testament to the savagery that had invaded her sanctuary, lay Eleanor Vance. Her body, a still shocking counterpoint to the vibrant disarray, represented a life abruptly extinguished. Thorne knelt, his eyes meticulously scanning the immediate area for any telltale sign. No forced entry was apparent, suggesting either a chillingly trusted acquaintance or a cunning, deceptive ruse. The sheer, frenzied brutality of the attack seemed deeply personal, far removed from the cold efficiency of a professional hit. His eyes then caught a faint disturbance on the wooden floor, barely perceptible drag marks leading towards a small, rarely used back exit. He must have taken her, Thorne, murmured his voice, a low, gravelly rumble, a stark realization solidifying in his mind. But the crime scene, for all its visceral horror, offered agonizingly little else. No clear fingerprints, no obvious weapon left behind. Just a chilling emptiness, a palpable void where a vibrant life had been now consumed by the unknown. The frustrating lack of tangible evidence sent a shiver down Thorne's spine. This would be a difficult one, a ghost of a crime leaving only a lingering malevolent chill in its wake. They had a victim, but the perpetrator had vanished without a trace, a phantom slipping through their fingers. In the immediate aftermath, Willow Creek's quiet rhythms were violently disrupted. The town became a cacophony of police radios and the grave faces of investigators, their presence a stark reminder of the horror. Officers canvassed every neighbor, every business, their relentless search piercing the town's peaceful facade. Every faint lead was pursued with desperate urgency. Eleanor's last known movements were meticulously tracked phone records, scoured, and her network of friends, clients, and acquaintances exhaustively interviewed. Their words, strained with disbelief, offered little beyond sorrow. Robert Vance Raw, with grief that felt like a physical wound, clung to every snippet of news, haunted by his sister's violated studio. He offered investigators photographs of Eleanor's vibrant spirit, recounted anecdotes of her unique light, and shared cherished memories, desperate for any detail that might guide them to an answer. His days blurred into a cycle of anxious waits and crushing disappointments. Yet days bled into weeks, then months. Each potential suspect brought in for questioning was eventually cleared. Every piece of forensic evidence, fibers, trace DNA, vague impressions, yielded frustratingly ambiguous results, offering no definitive link to a perpetrator. The initial frenzy of the investigation, a desperate sprint for answers, gradually ceded to a chilling, pervasive silence. The team, despite tireless efforts, found themselves staring into a void of unanswered questions, each avenue leading to a dead end. Detective Thorne felt the increasing weight of the unsolved case, a heavy mantle of professional failure. He grappled with the stark reality sometimes even the most meticulous work, the most dedicated pursuit couldn't conjure evidence from thin air. The once raging tempest of activity began to cool, slowly turning to ash in the department's cold case archives. Flyers bearing Eleanor's smiling face, once plastered across community boards, now faded, rain-streaked, began to peel away, forgotten by most passers-by. For Robert Vance, however, the passage of time only sharpened his resolve. He refused to let Eleanor's memory diminish, nor allow her vibrant life to become just another cold case file gathering dust in some forgotten cabinet. Her memory burned bright within him, an unyielding flame, fueling a quiet, ferocious promise justice, however long it took, would one day find its way to her. He stood as a sentinel of hope, guarding against the encroaching silence. Years blurred into a landscape of quiet grief, the vibrant shock of Eleanor Vance's murder settling into a dull, persistent ache in Willow Creek's collective memory. Her case file, once a bustling hub of investigation, had long since grown heavy with dead ends, eventually relegated to a dusty cabinet, a silent monument to the impenetrable brick walls Detective Thorne and his team had repeatedly slammed into. Thorne himself bore the weight of time, new lines etching deeper around his eyes from countless nights spent staring at the faces of the unsolved. Retirement loomed a quiet beckoning from a life less burdened, but the specter of Eleanor Vance lingered, an unquiet echo, a constant reminder of justice denied. Then a new directive swept through the department, a technologically driven initiative, a fresh gaze cast upon dormant cold cases. Thorne, a detective whose instincts were forged in shoe leather and gut feelings, regarded it with immediate skepticism. He'd seen countless fads and fleeting promises come and go, rarely delivering on their grand claims. But at the helm of this new cold case unit stood Detective Chloe Davis Sharp, analytically brilliant, fluent in the arcane language of data. Her laptop was a constant companion, her mind a ceaseless hum of algorithms embodying the very frontier of modern investigative work. One quiet afternoon she approached Thorne's desk, a subtle hum of focused determination radiating from her. "Detective Thorne," she began, her voice calm yet firm, her gaze unwavering. "I've reviewed the Vance file." The traditional leads ran irrevocably dry. But what about the invisible ones, the digital breadcrumbs we never even considered back then? She meticulously explained the Geofence Warrant, a controversial, yet increasingly potent tool. It allowed them to request anonymized location data from major tech companies, identifying every device present within a specified geographic area during a crucial time window, effectively drawing a precise digital circle around the crime scene. Thorne listened, a flicker of professional curiosity slowly replacing his ingrained skepticism. It was undeniably a long shot, a venture into uncharted digital territory for a seasoned investigator. But what alternative remained. Eleanor Vance, in her long-denied justice, deserved every avenue explored, even those hidden within the vast unseen currents of digital signals. The very air around them seemed to crackle with the electric possibility that the past, however cold, might yet yield its secrets to the quiet hum of the machine. Detective Thorne and Chloe Davis, a formidable alliance of seasoned intuition and cutting-edge digital acumen, immersed themselves in the Eleanor Vance case file. Their renewed focus, sharpened by a digital lens, sought the invisible threads years of traditional methods had missed. Their first critical task precisely pinpointing the elusive 2-hour window of Eleanor's disappearance and presumed murder on that fateful autumn evening. Using detailed geological surveys of Willow Creek and precise measurements from the original crime scene, they constructed a tight 2-block radius around Eleanor's secluded studio, a defined zone of interest where the perpetrator must have moved. The next step, a venture into the true digital unknown, was unprecedented for Thorne drafting the Geofence Warrant. This weighty document, dense with intricate legal prose, meticulously argued that the profound imperative for justice in Eleanor Vance's murder transcended the inherent privacy concerns of countless anonymous devices. The warrant, painstakingly crafted, was submitted to a major tech giant, a silent titan of the digital world, holding the keys to an unseen realm of human activity. The subsequent wait was agonizing. Each day stretched fraught with the tension of novel legal precedent and uncharted ethical boundaries. The fate of Eleanor Vance's case now hung suspended in a digital limbo. After weeks of anticipation, weeks that felt like an eon, the data finally arrived. It was not a name, nor an address, nor a definitive confession. Instead, a raw, unfiltered stream of anonymous device identifiers, unique digital signatures, had materialized, showing presence within their specified geofence during the critical period. It was a digital ocean teeming with hundreds of potential leads, a faceless, shimmering crowd of electronic ghosts. Yet within that vast, seemingly undifferentiated mass Thorne and Davis believed lay their phantom. Receiving the data felt less like a discovery and more like a high-stakes gamble, a finely woven net cast into the boundless digital deep, hoping to ensnare the one hidden truth that could finally shatter the decades of silence. The painstaking deciphering of these digital whispers had only just begun. The deluge of anonymous device IDs presented an unprecedented challenge, a digital haystack of staggering proportions. Detective Davis, with Thorne observing intently over her shoulder, began the meticulous, painstaking process of winnowing. They cross-referenced the unique digital signatures against known local residents, eliminating those whose alibis for the critical time period were ironclad. Their focus then shifted to patterns devices that had appeared within the geofence only once at that specific fateful time, standing out distinctly from the regular pings of commuters' residents or delivery drivers. Slowly, painstakingly, the initial list of hundreds narrowed to dozens, then to a mere handful. Each elimination felt like a small victory against the overwhelming tide of data. One particular device, ID, however, emitted a faint yet persistent signal that snagged Thorne's seasoned attention. It belonged to Marcus Thorne, no relation to the detective, simply a coincidence of a common surname. Marcus lived just a few blocks from Eleanor's studio, close enough to be within the geofence, yet far enough to avoid immediate suspicion. Marcus Thorne was in every measurable way unremarkable. A quiet, reclusive bachelor, he worked from home in a data entry role, leaving barely a ripple in the community. He possessed no criminal record, no known ties to Eleanor Vance, no obvious motive that could connect him to such an act of brutality. The digital breadcrumb, that solitary ping of his phone within the geofence, was the only thread, ethereal yet insistent, linking him to the crime. Thorne felt the familiar prickle of suspicion, a gut feeling honed by decades of chasing shadows and lies. It was a whisper from his intuition, a quiet insistence that this unassuming digital signal might hold a terrifying truth. They initiated discreet surveillance. Marcus's movements were mundane, predictable, a routine trip to the local grocery store, a quiet walk with his small terrier in the neighborhood park. His life was a portrait of ordinary solitude. Yet beneath this placid surface, the detectives now knew that a digital ghost of him had been present at a scene of unspeakable violence, a stark, chilling contradiction. The transition from an abstract device, ID, a mere string of numbers, to a flesh-and-blood suspect living an outwardly innocuous life, was jarring, a quiet, unsettling revelation that underscored the profound, sometimes terrifying power of data. The interview room was a sterile box, its fluorescent lights casting a cold, unblinking glare. The air thrummed with unspoken tension, a palpable weight between Detective Thorne and Marcus Thorne seated opposite one another. Behind the one-way glass, Detective Davis monitored every nuance, every flicker of an eye. Marcus initially projected an image of calm, polite cooperation. His demeanor was practiced, almost rehearsed. He denied any knowledge of Eleanor Vance, feigned a convincing surprise at the murder, and maintained with unwavering composure that he had been home during the time in question. "I was just watching TV," he stated, his voice, even his eyes steady, unnervingly so. A quiet night, in nothing unusual. Thorne, seasoned in the intricate art of interrogation, began to meticulously peel back the layers of Marcus's composed facade. He did not immediately present the damning Geofence data. Instead, he offered seemingly innocuous details about the crime, observing Marcus's subtle micro-expressions, the fleeting tells that betray deeper truths. "We know someone was in the area," Marcus Thorne said, his voice low, almost conversational, lulling Marcus into a false sense of security. "Someone who might have seen something, even if they weren't directly involved. Anything at all, perhaps a car, a sound." Marcus's composure began to fray. A flicker of nervousness danced in his eyes, a tremor almost imperceptible in his hands. He shifted in his seat, his gaze darting to the steel-gray walls. The silence stretched heavy and expectant. Then Thorne delivered the surgical strike, his voice dropping slightly, imbued with undeniable gravitas. "We have information, Marcus, unimpeachable data, placing your phone at Eleanor Vance's studio at the exact time of her disappearance." The words hung in the sterile air like a physical blow. Marcus's calm facade shattered. His face paled, and he stammered, his denials becoming more agitated, more defensive, losing their rehearsed cadence. He desperately cobbled together a new story, a clumsy attempt to re-establish his alibi. He had gone for a late-night walk, perhaps passed by the studio, but vehemently swore he saw nothing, heard nothing. His attempts to deflect blame and feign ignorance now seemed pathetic, born of desperation. His words tangled around him, a spider's web of lies that slowly, inevitably began to draw him deeper into their inescapable trap. The carefully constructed truth he had maintained for years was unraveling thread by painful thread. Marcus Thorne's hastily fabricated alibi, a desperate construct born from the Geofence data's revelation, dissolved under Thorne and Davis's meticulous scrutiny. His late-night walk narrative, a flimsy shield against encroaching truth, crumbled under precise questioning about routes, timings, and landmarks he clearly hadn't observed. The digital footprint had placed him at Eleanor's studio. Now the detectives needed to bridge that virtual presence to the brutal physical act to unearth the tangible evidence that would explain what happened. Armed with the compelling digital lead and Marcus's rapidly unraveling statements, the prosecution secured a search warrant for his modest home. Forensic teams descended their meticulous work, aimed at stripping away the ordinary veneer Marcus had carefully cultivated. Thorne and Davis watched from a distance, the anticipation a tangible pulse in the air, a desperate hope riding on every painstaking sweep for definitive proof. Days of exhaustive searching yielded nothing overtly incriminating. The cluttered house offered no immediate secrets. Meticulous sweeps for blood fibers and DNA returned negative or inconclusive. A familiar knot of despair tightened in Thorne's stomach. The phantom killer seemed to mock them even with the digital breakthrough. Just as the initial wave of hope began to recede, a call cut through the silence of the monitoring room. It was from the search team, their voices hushed, infused with a sudden, electrifying urgency. Then, from the cluttered, seldom used attic of Marcus Thorne's home, tucked beneath a stack of dusty newspapers, came the breakthrough. The first item, a small, intricately carved wooden bird, its delicate wings poised in perpetual flight. It was a signature piece of Eleanor Vance's artisan collection, a whimsical guardian known to grace her studio desk. Its presence in Marcus's attic forged a chilling, undeniable link. Beside it, wrapped in faded cloth, lay a heavy, blunt ornamental statue, its abstract form sinister. Its base bore faint, almost invisible specks of dried, dark red. Preliminary tests conducted rapidly confirmed it human blood. Confronted with the small wooden bird and the stained statue placed starkly before him on the interrogation table, Marcus Thorne's last vestige of defiance evaporated. His face blanched, the color draining from his features, as if physically pulled away. The final pieces of his composure dissolved, leaving him a hollow shell of the man who had sat so calmly moments before. He offered no verbal confession, no torrent of words. Instead, his shoulders sagged, his gaze dropped to the cold, unforgiving floor, and a long, guttural sigh escaped his lips, a sound laden with the crushing weight of years of hidden guilt. It was the silent, devastating admission Thorne had pursued. For what felt like an eternity, a confession articulated not in speech, but in the complete abject collapse of a man's will, finally crushed by the irrefutable truth. The trial of Marcus Thorne for Eleanor Vance's murder rapidly transcended local tragedy, becoming a national focal point. The unassuming courtroom in Willow Creek transformed into a crucible where centuries of legal tradition collided with the frontiers of cutting-edge technology. District Attorney Evelyn Reed, a formidable legal mind renowned for her razor-sharp intellect, spearheaded the prosecution. She meticulously constructed a compelling narrative weaving together the traditional evidence, the found artisan bird, the blood-stained statue, Marcus Thorne's shattered alibis, with the audacious, groundbreaking geofence data. This fusion presented a complete, damning mosaic of his culpability. Detective Thorne, his testimony measured and authoritative, took the stand. He methodically recounted the arduous investigation, the initial shock of the crime scene, the years of cold leads, and the systematic unraveling of Marcus Thorne's fabrications under the pressure of the digital evidence. His words carried the quiet conviction of a man who had relentlessly pursued a ghost, and against all odds, finally tangible proof. In the front row, Robert Vance, Eleanor's brother, remained a figure of quiet endurance. His grief, A palpable weight in the courtroom was channeled into an unwavering gaze fixed on Marcus Thorne, a silent, desperate demand for justice. However, the defense led by the sharp, charismatic attorney, Kenneth Harding, mounted a fierce and unexpected counterattack. His challenge was not merely against Marcus Thorne's guilt, but against the very bedrock of the prosecution's case, the Geofence Warrant itself. Harding painted the warrant as an egregious, unconstitutional invasion of privacy warning. It set a perilous precedent. "Is this the true cost of justice?" he thundered, his voice echoing through the hushed courtroom. "That every movement, every digital flicker of our lives can be scrutinized and collected without explicit individual probable cause, without our knowledge, without our consent." The courtroom quickly became a contentious battleground of legal philosophy. Expert witnesses, ranging from digital forensic specialists to constitutional law scholars, offered their perspectives. They debated the intricate technicalities of data collection, the evolving definition of privacy in a digitally saturated world, and the delicate, precarious balance between the state's pursuit of truth and fundamental individual liberties. Legal scholars dissected the far-reaching implications, and the public watched, rapt and visibly divided, as the proceedings unfolded on screens across the nation. A profound ethical dilemma settled heavily in the air, a silent, pervasive question that transcended the horrific details of Eleanor Vance's murder. It hovered over the proceedings, resonating from the very walls of the courtroom. What hidden cost was society paying for this new digital justice? The jury, a group of ordinary citizens burdened with an extraordinary responsibility, deliberated for days. Their faces etched with the profound weight of their task, reflected the immense complexity of weighing not only the evidence of a brutal crime, but also the far-reaching implications of the new digital age for fundamental human freedoms. The courtroom air, thick with the residue of contentious legal debate, became impossibly dense with anticipation. Every breath held, every gaze fixed, as the jury foreman, his ordinary face now etched with profound responsibility, finally rose. His voice clear and resonant, despite the hushed reverence that enveloped the assembly, sliced through the tension. "We, the jury, find the defendant, Marcus Thorne, guilty of the murder of Eleanor Vance." A collective gasp rippled through the gallery, a singular intake of breath, a release held for so long. It was swiftly followed by the quiet, trembling sobs of Robert Vance. Years of agonizing grief, tightly held in check, finally found their visceral release. His shoulders shook as his sister's name echoed with the promise of justice. Marcus Thorne, who had maintained a facade of cold, practiced indifference throughout the trial, showed for the first time a flicker of something beyond defiance. Cold, almost imperceptible shift in his eyes, a brief moment where stark reality seemed to pierce his features, a fleeting acknowledgement of the inescapable before his face settled back into an emotionless mask, a blank canvas of defeat. Robert Vance, his face streaked with tears, slowly pushed himself to his feet to deliver his victim impact statement. His voice, though initially trembling, gained strength, with each word transforming into a conduit for both enduring sorrow and unwavering condemnation. He spoke not merely of a crime, but of a stolen future, a vibrant light extinguished. He painted a poignant portrait of Eleanor's boundless creativity that had brought joy and color to so many, and the gaping, festering wound her brutal absence had left in the hearts of those who loved her. His gaze, unblinking, fixed directly on Marcus Thorne, piercing through the killer's cold indifference. "You did not merely take a life. Robert declared, his voice now steady, accusatory. You tore a piece from the very fabric of our world, from the beauty, the joy, the spirit that made Willow Creek whole. May you never again walk free to inflict such pain. His words hung in the silence, a final, unyielding judgment. For Detective Alex Thorne, the verdict brought a profound, almost bone-deep sense of closure. The specter of Eleanor Vance, who had haunted his waking hours and troubled his restless sleep for so long, could finally rest. As he watched Marcus Thorne being led away, his figure receding into the cold custody of the state, Thorne reflected on the irrevocably shifting landscape of his profession. The Geofence Warrant, once a controversial gamble, a desperate last resort, had indeed proved its worth. It had pulled a killer from the deepest shadows, illuminating a path where none had existed. Yet Thorne knew it had also opened a Pandora's box of complex ethical questions, charting a new frontier in the endless evolving battle between crime and justice. The verdict for Eleanor Vance marked a victory, but it served as a stark reminder that the long arm of the law was now reaching into the unseen digital world, fundamentally altering how justice would be pursued. It meant grappling with an uncomfortable truth that every step, every digital flicker could now be traced, leaving indelible breadcrumbs across a vast, invisible landscape of human activity. Willow Creek slowly began its long process of healing. The memory of Eleanor Vance, forever interwoven with the digital trail that led to her killer, would serve as a constant reminder that while evil could conceal itself in the deepest shadows, the relentless pursuit of truth had gained a powerful new and ethically complex ally. The silence that had once engulfed Eleanor's studio, a chilling vacuum of loss, was finally filled. Not with sorrow, but with the quiet, enduring hum of a hard-won peace, a testament to a life reclaimed from oblivion. The digital age delivers justice, yet compels a constant reckoning with the unseen cost to privacy. If you seek more true stories, where the echoes of justice resonate through the digital world, hit subscribe to join us for our next deep dive into the Shadow Files. Don't forget to subscribe to Shadow Files and hit the notification bell